I already uploaded in the YouTube. Okay, sorry for the delay. Okay, so once we finish chapter number 4, okay, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna have our first test, okay, if I'm not, based on the WhatsApp that I sent to the group. Test number 1 should be due next week, right? Okay. Can you please check again in your group WhatsApp too, on the last message? Yeah, test 1 week 5, okay, 16th of April. Okay, so that will be the tentative date lah. Okay, for your test number 1, covering chapter 1 to 4. Okay, so this week is our chapter 4 on the elasticity of demand. Okay, so the topic that requires some simple calculation, okay, but also a topic that students tend to make mistake the most, okay, compared to some other topics because of the concept of elasticity can be quite confusing if you don't understand the basic if you don't understand how to actually calculate and interpret. Okay, so hopefully we can do that in this week. Okay, so for today, if you look at the slides in your OL, the one from Arnold, okay, and also the one the other one that I also uploaded, okay, both are very similar. Okay, so I'm going to use both lah. I mean, maybe we start with the Arnold slide first. Okay, so this week, this for today on Monday, I hope to cover up to elasticity of demand, the calculation, and how to interpret. Okay, and we need to go a bit fast because this topic is quite long. Okay, but since we have 1 week to cover, okay, so maybe on this coming Thursday, if then we can finish on the elasticity of supply and do a bit of revision, okay, which hopefully will be you can, if you look at last semester's video lecture, which I already linked in your YouTube video, okay, so you can even look at the questions which I discussed last semester as part of the revision, okay. If we don't have the time to discuss uh, a lot of questions for this week. Okay, so let's start with our lecture on elasticity of demand. Okay, so first, last week when we learned on the concept of demand and supply, okay, we learned on the basic law. Okay, price increase, quantity fall for demand. For supply, price increase, quantity increase, quantity supplied increase. And also we look at the second part, what are the factors that cause the demand and supply to shift, okay, to move to the right when increase in demand or supply, or move to the left, okay, shift to the left when there is a decrease in demand and a decrease in supply. Okay, and also point out the differences between quantity demanded and demand versus quantity supplied and supply. Okay, so please do watch the videos or look at the notes from last week's lecture. Okay, so this for this week when we cover on elasticity, okay, so the word elasticity is the main focus point. Okay, so what is elasticity? Okay, of course you can refer to the formula here, okay, but in layman term, bahasa orang awam, or in the simplest language possible, elasticity basically measures how sensitive, okay, the sensitiveness of demand, okay, of the market demand when the price changes. Okay, so when we talk about price elasticity of demand, okay, please take note there are several type of elasticity. Okay, in your syllabus we cover first price elasticity. We also cover cross price elasticity and also income elasticity. So there are 3 types of elasticity, but the main one is price elasticity of demand. Okay, price elasticity of demand means it measures how sensitive um, Okay, give me 1 minute, okay? Okay, price elasticity of demand. Okay, so it measures how sensitive the consumers, okay, how sensitive or responsiveness of the demand, okay, specifically quantity demanded, given a change in the price. Okay, so when you want to measure this in terms of the general formula is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Okay, so this is the general formula, and of course, at this for principle of economics, okay, we're gonna use the average formula, okay, for you can see from the next slide, okay, but the general formula is percentage QD change in QD divided percentage change in price. Okay, so this is the general guideline how to calculate elasticity of demand. Okay, so and for demand you're gonna always have the negative sign. Okay, but here in the Arnold slide, okay, if you compare with this the other slide here, okay, both are the same. Okay, but I just want you to take note that whenever you calculate elasticity of demand, you will get a negative answer. Okay, because for example like this one, okay, the negative sign just mean that it just reflect that the negative relationship between price and quantity. Okay, because the law of demand, price increase, quantity fall. Okay, but for supply, price increase, quantity also increase. So for elasticity of supply, the coefficient or the value that you get will always be positive. But for demand, it always be negative. But we don't really look at the negative sign when we want to interpret. Okay, we just focus on the absolute value. The negative sign is just to illustrate the inverse or the negative relationship between price and quantity. Okay, because the demand curve is downward sloping, price increase, quantity fall, and vice versa. That's why whenever you calculate elasticity of demand, the negative sign is just to illustrate or to show the negative relationship between P and Q. Okay, so the general formula is percentage in change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Okay, take a look at this example first, okay, for 1 minute, okay, and then I will get back to you and try to understand how how do you obtain this answer as 3.67. Okay, so if you look at this simple formula here, okay, so the how do you get 3.67 is basically first you need four values, right? Price and quantity before and price and quantity after. Okay, so the top part here is change in QD, and the bottom part here is change in price. So just takes the value. Okay, Q before and after. So before is 150, after is 100. So 100 minus 50, you get 50, and then you take the average between the two. 100 plus 50 is 150. Divide by 2, you should get 75. Okay, so 50 plus 100 divided by 2. If you look at this slide here, okay, so you will get this another similar example in the second slide in your OL, okay, where you find how to calculate the average. Okay, so but since we are using the unknown slide first, so how do you get 75? 75, 50 plus 100 divided by 2. Okay, the same thing as 2 and 11. 2 is basically 12 minus 10, 2, and how you get 11? 12 plus 10 divided by 2. So 22 divided by 2, you get 11. You solve for it, you should get 3.67. Okay, so by right, it should be negative 3.67. Okay, but for this book, okay, they remove the negative sign because the focus is just on the absolute value 3. But if you calculate the actual number, it should be negative 3.67, just like in this slide here. Okay, the number is of course different, but the value is the negative sign will always be with the elasticity of demand. Okay, but for the slide under Arnold textbook, okay, they remove the negative sign. Okay, because the focus is just on the value. Okay, so here you get 3.67. Okay, so next is how do you interpret the value of elasticity of demand? Okay, so remember the focus is the absolute value 3.67 or 1.2 or 0.1. Okay, although you get negative 0.1, negative 3.2, okay, but only focus at the absolute value, okay, not the negative value. Okay, give me one. Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so once you calculate the elasticity of demand, okay, whatever value that you get, focus on the absolute value. If the value is more than 1, let's say negative 2.1, means that the value that you get is 2.1, okay, not the negative sign. So if more than 1, we call the demand as being elastic demand. If the value is less than 1, let's say negative 0.1 or anything between 0 to 1. Okay, negative 0.1, negative 0.3, negative 0.9. Okay, as long as it is less than 1, okay, then we call it demand is inelastic. Okay, but if the value is exactly equals to 1, we call it unit elastic. Okay, but mostly you're going to get between these two, more than 1, 1.1, 1.2, 2 point anything above 1, or less than 1, meaning the value should be 0 point something lah, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. So these are the two most common one lah. But of course, sometimes you may get equals to 1, which is unit elastic. Okay, so from and also you can have what we call the extreme case. Okay, if you look at this slide here, okay, more than 1, just now we call it elastic. Okay, less than 1 inelastic, equals to 1, we call it unit elastic. If the value goes to infinity, we call it perfectly elastic, meaning the value can go up to 1 million, 2 million, okay, or we call it infinity. If the value is exactly 0, we call it perfectly inelastic. Okay, so now how do you understand, how to actually understand this from, because I'm sure many of you are not from economics school, okay, or you are not really familiar with this concept of demand and supply, especially on elasticity. Okay, but as I mentioned just now, okay, the way to understand the issue of elasticity of demand is first the keyword. Okay, it measures how responsive you are. So if you say that demand is elastic, means that demand is very the demand for that particular good is very responsive to changes in price. If the demand is inelastic, means that the demand for that particular good is not responsive or not sensitive to changes in price. Okay, so just understand that concept of whether it is sensitive or not sensitive to changes in price. So elastic means sensitive. Inelastic means not sensitive or less sensitive to changes in price. Okay, so in terms of the formula here, okay, so when you say more than 1, so of course the numerator should be bigger than the denominator. Okay, because the formula just now earlier, okay, I mentioned that the general formula is percentage change in QD divided by percentage change in price. This is the general formula. So when this value is bigger than if the numerator is bigger than the denominator, you will get the value to be more than 1. If the numerator, which is percentage change in QD, is less than the value on the percentage change in the price, which is the denominator, you will get the value to be less than 1, which is the inelastic. If the value numerator and the denominator is exactly the same, you get unit elastic. Okay, so and these two cases, extreme case, perfectly elastic means the value on the numerator or the percentage change in QD is very big when there is a small change in price. Okay, so because to get a value up to infinity, the value on the top must be very big compared to the value in the denominator. Okay, and opposite will be inelastic. Perfectly inelastic means that quantity demanded does not change as price changes. So how do you see this different type of elasticity? First, just now you learn how to calculate this either using the average formula, okay, from this one, or you can see from the other slide, okay, the average formula. And then you once you obtain the value, okay, although you're gonna get the negative sign, okay, but the focus is just the absolute value. This one is 0.5, means it is less than 1. Less than 1 means it is inelastic. Okay, if I add 1 here, okay, then this become elastic demand, okay, because the value is of course more than 1. Okay, but the original slide, okay, the original number is 0.59, which is less than 1. So we call it demand is inelastic demand. Okay, so going back to the slide here, okay, so you have 5 types of elasticity of demand: elastic, inelastic, unit, perfectly elastic, and perfectly inelastic. Okay, so the 3 most common one is the 2 most common one are the first 2, elastic and also inelastic. So what is the shape of the demand curve for elastic demand? Okay, elastic demand, whenever you want to see whenever you want to see the whenever you plot the demand curve, elastic demand will be flatter than inelastic demand. Okay, so elastic demand will always be flat. Okay, flat means okay, the landai lah. Okay, but inelastic it will be steeper. Okay, curam. Okay, compared to elastic. But for unit elastic, okay, usually you will get the demand curve not to be a straight line like this, but a semi-parabola lah, or uh, concave or convex. Okay, just like your. So this is unit elastic. Okay, so because the idea is, okay, first one is elastic demand. We know that elastic demand is percentage change in demand. Okay, in quantity demand is bigger than the change in price. Okay, percentage change in price. So this is what, and in order for you to achieve percentage change in demand is bigger than the percentage change in price, okay, or the numerator should be bigger than the denominator. Okay, because whenever you plot the demand curve, P is on the y-axis, Q demand is on the x-axis. Okay, and to achieve that percentage QD bigger than percentage change in price, you need a flat demand curve. Okay, so you can see here, when price increase P1 to P2, the distance here is smaller than the distance of change in quantity demanded. Okay, so that's how you can see why this is an elastic demand. So 20% bigger than 10%. Okay, that's what we discussed just now. Okay, for elastic demand, percentage change in QD should be bigger than percentage change in price. So in that, if this is the case, we call it elastic demand, where the value of elasticity should be more than 1. And vice versa lah. For inelastic, you should the demand curve should be flat, should be steeper, okay, lebih curam, whereby the change in price is bigger than the change in quantity demanded, okay, or the numerator change is smaller than the change in the denominator. Okay, just like this one, in elastic, percentage change in demand or quantity demanded is smaller than percentage change in price. Okay, so the demand curve should be curam, okay, or steeper than the elastic demand. Okay, as long as you can show that the changes in quantity demanded is smaller than the change in price, so that indicates the demand is inelastic. Okay, whereby unit elastic, where the value exactly equals to 1. So for that to happen, the percentage change in QD must be equal to percentage change in price. Okay, and the two extreme cases, perfectly elastic. Okay, recall perfectly elastic is that quantity demanded is extremely responsive to an even small change in price. In other words, when a price change just by a little bit, demand will increase exponentially, meaning the change in demand, quantity demanded will be very, very big, even though the price change very small. Okay, and for that to happen, the demand curve must be perfectly horizontal. Okay, so why this is a perfectly elastic? Okay, so you can see that price is almost constant. Okay, the price is almost the same price, but quantity can go from 0 to infinity. Okay, so recall perfectly elastic occurs when uh, a small change in price will lead to a large quantity change in quantity demanded. So just a small, of course, you cannot see the price change here. Okay, but in order to illustrate why this is an elastic, perfectly elastic, okay, quantity can go from 0 to infinity when the price maybe change very, very small amount. Okay, and finally, the perfectly inelastic, the demand curve should be perfectly horizontal, vertical, which means, okay, the quantity demanded does not change. Okay, although price change from 1%, 20%. Okay, or in other words, if you look at this point again, perfectly inelastic, quantity demanded does not change as price changes. Okay, so for that to be possible, the demand curve must be perfectly vertical. So quantity is constant. So although price change by how many percent, demand will always be the same value. Okay, so that is perfectly inelastic. Okay, so again, I just want to recap. Okay, the word elasticity measures responsiveness, or how sensitive the demand is to changes in price. So if you say that demand is elastic, okay, like this, we say that the demand or the consumers lah, okay, who buy the products are very sensitive to changes in price. Uh, the price changes the changes in price is smaller than the change in quantity. So when price change a bit, demand will change by a lot bigger than the change in price. Okay, and for this is the opposite lah. Inelastic means consumer are not sensitive or not responsive, okay, to changes in price. So although price change a lot, demand only change smaller than the change in price. Okay, so that is the concept of elasticity of demand. Okay. Okay, so this is the same thing just now. So I think what is important for this topic, okay, is for you to be able to calculate, okay, the value of elasticity of demand and elasticity of supply. Okay, so I don't want, because your test will be basically 100% on multiple choice question, okay, MCQ based. So in terms of the assessment, it will be based on how do you if you get certain value of the elasticity, what does that value correspond to the demand being elastic, inelastic, or unit elastic, or perfectly elastic? Okay, so that is the main focus here. Okay, so okay, so this is so that is one part. Okay, and then the connection between elasticity of demand and revenue. Okay, first let me go back to this slide here again. Okay, so what are the, in terms of general knowledge, okay, or if you want to relate, okay, what goods and services fall under elastic demand? Okay, barang-barang apa yang that you can classify as demand being elastic? Okay, recall elastic means demand is very sensitive. Demand is sensitive to changes in price. So we can usually the elastic demand what we call as normal goods, okay, barangan-barangan normal, maybe okay, basic, I mean normal goods. For example, let's say the price of vehicles, okay, the price of cars, okay, vehicles, okay, or cars. So let's say if the company drop the price, okay, by 10% discount, okay, during certain festive season, for example. So maybe a small drop in price will cause an increase in demand by bigger than the percentage change in price. So that means that the product is elastic. The demand is elastic. Okay. So let's say the company Produa, okay, give a 5% discount. Okay, discount on the price of vehicle. Okay, of certain model. Let's say on Axia model. Okay, but then after the price drop by 5%, quantity demanded, let's say, increase by 10%. Okay, the number of car of Axia model being sold that month, okay, is 10%. So price only dropped by 5%, but quantity increased by 10%. So if you 10 divide by 5, you get 2 lah. 2 means that the demand is elastic. Okay, the demand is elastic, meaning more than 1. Okay, more than 1 means it is elastic. Okay, so that is usually for normal goods. Okay, how about inelastic demand? Okay, so inelastic demand usually in terms of the goods that we buy in grocery store, in shops, usually what we can consider as basic necessities. Okay, for example, flour, beras, tepung, sugar, rice. Okay, so these are goods that you need to consume. Okay, whether the price is cheap or the price increase, okay, the amount that you will buy will not really change a lot. Okay, so for basic necessities, okay, even for example like item like cigarette, okay, for smokers, even though the price increase, if you are a heavy smoker, you might still want to consume the same quantity, or maybe you only reduce a bit, okay, although the price increase a lot. So maybe let's say the price of rice, it increased by 10%, okay, but because rice is a basic necessity, so the quantity demanded might fall less than the change in price. So for basic items like sugar, rice, salt, okay, or even item like cigarette, okay, So those items might be can be categorized as inelastic demand. Means that consumer are not responsive, even though the price increase a lot, but you still will buy the same. If you reduce the demand only by a smaller percentage compared to the change in price. Okay, so those are the two most common elastic and elastic lah. For unit elastic, okay, I can't think of anything lah, because this is just in terms of theory. Okay, but the two most common one is elastic and inelastic. Okay, and these two are the extreme cases lah. Okay, so and then what is the relationship between elasticity of demand, okay, and revenue? Okay, if you are, let's say, if you are selling items online, let's say in Shopee or Lazada, okay, and if your products are, the demand is elastic, let's say you are selling gadgets, okay, like smartphone gadgets, okay, and smartphone gadgets are common to be elastic in demand because those are not compulsory, okay, meaning you are buying some casings or screen protector or earphones, headphones for your smartphone, okay. So the demand for this usually are elastic. So you know that if you want to increase the revenue, let's say during Shopee sale or Lazada sale, if you are a seller in Shopee or Lazada selling items where the demand is elastic, okay, how are you going to make sure that you can increase your revenue? Is it by if your demand is elastic, what will you do? Are you going to reduce the price or increase the price in order to increase revenue? So that is the 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 apa tu, the relationship between elasticity and total revenue. Okay, so I give example about if the demand being elastic, so for example, smartphone gadgets, okay. Uh, so if the demand is elastic, okay, and if the seller in Shopee or Lazada wants to increase their revenue, the thing that they need to do is to reduce price, okay, because you know that consumer is very sensitive to price changes. Okay, so a small change in price will lead to a bigger change in quantity demanded, correct? Okay, so that is what we learned just now. Okay, in terms of the changes, a small change in price will lead to a bigger change in quantity demanded. Okay, of course, this one, the price increase. Okay, if you reverse the process, if the price drop by 10%, quantity will increase by 20%, meaning that quantity demanded increase more than the drop in price. So the effect on revenue will be, the revenue will increase when the demand is elastic. So it's better for the seller to reduce the price because the increase in quantity demanded will be much bigger than the drop in price. Okay, so that's how you get this diagram here. When demand is elastic, more than one, when price decrease, revenue will increase. Okay, but when price increase, revenue will fall because it's just the opposite. When the demand is elastic, when the seller increase the price, quantity demanded will drop more than the change in price. So the effect will bring down the revenue. Okay, so opposite to elastic demand, for inelastic demand, if the seller wants to increase revenue, what the seller needs to do is actually they need to increase the price because as what we learned just now, when the demand is inelastic, okay, or in other words, consumer is not sensitive to price changes. So what will happen if the seller increase the price, let's say by 10%, of course, demand will decrease, but the drop in demand will be smaller than the change in price. So price increase 10%, quantity demanded only drop by 4%. So the net effect, revenue will increase. So when the demand, if the seller is selling products which are not elastic or inelastic, okay, so the best strategy is to increase price because although demand will drop, but the drop in quantity demanded will be smaller than the increase in price. So the effect will be to increase total revenue. And the opposite will be true. Okay, if the demand is elastic and the seller decide to reduce the price, okay, so revenue will fall because the drop in price will be bigger than the drop in revenue. In quantity demanded, and that's why revenue will fall. Okay. By the way, how do you calculate revenue? Okay, TR, okay, or total revenue, Okay, mathematically we obtain revenue by P times Q, price times quantity. That's how you get total revenue. Okay, so that is the simplest formula for TR. So why TR reduce or increase? Okay, so because revenue is based on P times Q, price times quantity. So when price, in the case of demand being elastic, okay, when price increase, okay, quantity demanded will drop by more than price, the change in price. Okay, and the quantity that fall when you price by when P times Q, the effect will bring down the total revenue lah. Okay, so but for unit elastic, okay, whether price increase or decrease, total revenue will remain unchanged. Why? Because the effect is the same. The change in price, the percentage change in price will be the same as the percentage drop in quantity. So TR remains unchanged regardless when the price increase or decrease. Okay, so again, if the demand is being elastic, okay, the best is for the seller to reduce the price. If the seller wants to increase revenue, they should reduce the price. Okay, and the opposite will be true for when the demand is inelastic. If the seller goal is to increase revenue, they should increase the price. Okay, so you need to understand this concept first. Okay, based on so once you understand this, okay, if you are being tested on this idea of elasticity and revenue, okay, you should be able to answer them correctly. Okay, so that is the basic idea of demand and supply. Sorry, elasticity of demand. And when you plot, when you want to visualize elasticity of demand, okay, under one graph, okay, of course, this can be done also. And in the demand curve, okay, the top portion on the left, okay, is where the demand is more elastic. Okay, of course, you will ask, how come this can be different? Because it is a linear graph. When linear, the slope, the keturunan, the slope or the gradient will be constant. Okay, elasticity is not the gradient. Okay, gradient, how do you measure gradient? Okay, gradient is not elasticity, okay, because elasticity is the percentage change divided by percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. Okay, but elasticity is not, gradient is not measured by percentage changes. Okay, so in terms of the demand, you can see here why this on the top part here, on the left side of the demand curve, elasticity will be always be more than 1. Okay, here you can see why. Okay, and of course, in the middle, exactly in the middle, ED equals to 1. And the bottom part of the demand curve, demand will be relatively more inelastic, as you can see here as well. Okay, the percentage change in quantity will be bigger than percentage change in price. Okay, but on the top part here, percentage change in quantity will be bigger than percentage change in price. Okay, the opposite from here. So that's why when you and the effect of this, you can see when the demand is elastic. Okay, if you recall just now, if the seller wants to increase revenue, what should they do? They should reduce price. Okay, but when the demand is inelastic, if the seller wants to increase revenue, they should increase the price. So this can be seen here as well. In this range of when the demand is inelastic, to increase revenue, the seller should reduce the price. So that's why when price goes down, so how do you read this graph? Okay, so when price goes down, okay, revenue will keep on increasing. Okay, so revenue start to increase. Okay, but when price drop down even further, in the range of inelastic demand, revenue will start to fall. Okay, so that's how you read this graph lah. So this graph basically you are looking at when the price starts to decline. Okay, when the price drop, revenue will increase when the demand is in the elastic range. But when the demand fall under inelastic range, drop in price will actually bring down your revenue. Okay, just like in this summary here. Okay, when the demand is elastic, drop in price will bring down revenue. Okay, but in the elastic range, drop in price will increase revenue. Okay, so here when drop in price, revenue increase. But in the elastic range, drop in price will bring down your revenue. Okay, so that is the main thing that you need to understand lah. Okay, first of course is the calculation. How do you calculate elasticity of demand? Okay, and what is the meaning of the value, whether it is elastic or inelastic? Okay, and then whether it is elastic or inelastic, and then what are the connection between elasticity and total revenue. Okay, so that is the main takeaway lah from what we have discussed so far. Okay, and finally, before we end our today's lecture, okay, what are the determinants of elasticity of demand? So we discussed the three main one, being elastic, more than one, less or inelastic, less than one, or unit elastic. Okay, but the two main one are these two lah, elastic or inelastic. Okay, so what are the cause for the demand being elastic or inelastic? Just now I mentioned that for normal goods, usually demand will be elastic. For barang keperluan, basic necessities, okay, demand will usually be less elastic or inelastic. Okay, so here in these slides, okay, is discussed in quite in brief. Okay, the factors that will cause the demand being elastic or not elastic. Okay, but whenever you look at these factors, okay, please use your common sense. Do not simply memorize this, because demand and supply, especially demand, okay, everyone is a consumer, okay, but not everyone is a seller. Okay, we buy goods, we consume goods, okay, but not everyone of us actually is a seller, okay, unless you start doing business lah. Okay, but everyone is a consumer lah. Okay, so in this aspect, whenever you look at these factors, try to understand from the consumer point of view. Okay, the number of the number of substitutes, necessities versus luxuries. Okay, and then percentage of one's budget spent on the good, and time. Okay, number of substitute. Okay, bilangan barangan pengganti, or substitute means product that serve the same purpose. Okay, for example, the most typical example, Coke and Pepsi. Okay, both are carbonated drinks, but both serve the same purpose lah. Okay, KFC, let's say McD versus Burger King, both are selling burgers. Of course, you can argue that they taste differently on certain burger. Okay, but if you want to compare in terms of same category, burger and burger, okay, so maybe Texas chicken versus KFC chicken. Okay, so both are selling fried chicken as well. So number of substitute, the more substitutes, lagi banyak pilihan. Okay, here we can also you can also see this as choices. Okay, number of choices. The more choices you have, let's say you go to the Shopee or Lazada, okay, you want to buy a certain item, and you can see how many sellers are selling similar product, okay, or with the same brand or product that serve the same purpose. Okay, so the more choices that you have in terms of the substitutes, demand will be more elastic. Okay, means that demand will be more than one. The elasticity will be more than one, or in other words, elastic. Okay, necessity versus luxuries. Okay, just now I mentioned for basic stuff like rice, sugar, flour, oil, cooking oil. Okay, those are necessities. And usually for necessities, demand will be less elastic, okay, less than one. Okay, but for luxury items or normal goods, okay, like handphones, laptops, okay, these are categories where demand usually will be more elastic. Okay, percentage of one's budget spent on the good. The more money you spend, you allocate on certain item, okay, the more elastic your demand will be. So let's say if you only spend a small amount of your money on, let's say let's say how much do you buy, I mean, to make things simple, okay, how much do you spend on sugar every month? So let's say if your family buys okay, a packet of sugar, 1 kilogram of sugar or 2 kilogram of sugar, okay, but sugar is cheap. Okay, so how much in terms of your salary or the money that you allocate from your scholarship, your PTPTN money, okay, to buy, let's say a packet of sugar, okay, a kilogram of sugar. is very small, correct? So the less money you spend, demand will be less elastic, because even if the price of sugar increase, but because the money spent on sugar is only a small portion of your salary or your income, okay? So even though the price of sugar increase, you don't really mind, because you only spend a small amount of money from your salary on that item. So the smaller the money spent, demand will be less elastic. But if you spend a lot of money on that particular goods from your income, the demand will be more elastic. Okay, because any small changes, okay, will affect your portion of income spent lah on that good. Okay, and then time is, the more time you have, your demand will be more elastic. Why? Because, just again, okay, use your own common sense. You can adjust your spending habit. Okay, so let's say if you cannot eat, let's say in terms of your daily diet. Okay, let's say you cannot drink other than Milo. Okay, you cannot drink Ovaltine, you cannot drink some other brand like Tesco brand or whatever chocolate drinks. You must only drink Milo. Okay, so but let's say the price of Milo has increased a lot, so you need some time to adjust, maybe to change to another brand. So the more time you have, demand will be more elastic. Okay, but if you are given less time, less time, I mean the less time you are given, demand will be less elastic. Okay, so these are all common sense. Okay, the more choices you have, demand will be more elastic. Again, because elasticity measures how responsive consumer to changes in price. Okay, so if you have many choices, if the price change, you can choose other goods, other brands, because you got choices. But if you don't have many choice, okay, even though the price increase, okay, you say to yourself what to do. Okay, this is the only option. Okay, for example, like few years ago, when many years ago, Astro is the only provider of cable TV. Now you have Unify, okay, and like Netflix. You can use internet to watch movies, okay. But previously only Astro. So no matter what Astro charges on the customer, okay, we got no other choice if you want to spend on cable TV, okay. So but now, because you have more choices than before, so that's why now you can see Astro are trying to to push people to subscribe to their services, because people now have more choices. When you have more choices or substitutes, demand will be more elastic. Okay, more sensitive to price changes. Okay, so these are the things. Of course, you need to look at the questions from the test bank from past years for you to be able to understand. So basically, these are all about understanding the concept of elasticity of demand. Okay, so I think I will leave it on that part first. Okay, because on the remaining slides, okay, when we cover on elasticity of supply, it shouldn't be that difficult, because once you understand the concept of elasticity of demand, supply will be much easier. Okay, so on next Thursday, we're going to cover on cross elasticity of demand, which basically focuses on complement and substitute. Okay, we already discussed this. Substitute are barangan pengganti, goods that serve the same purpose. Okay, different brand but same purpose, like smartphone brands. Okay, complements, good that must be used together. Okay, so what are the how do you calculate cross elasticity of demand for substitute and complements? Especially, I think for principle of economics, you need to know how to interpret if the value is positive and if the value is negative. So positive means for substitute, negative refers to when the goods are complements. Okay, so that is, I think, for the focus for principle of economics. I don't think you need to learn how to calculate. Okay, but basically how to interpret this. Okay, so I will leave on this note first, and we will start again on Thursday on this part. Okay, covering on cross price elasticity. Okay, and then we're gonna finish off with the elasticity of supply. Okay, and then we're gonna cover on the we're not going to discuss this. Okay, so we're gonna stop until just elasticity of supply, okay, and then the factors that can cause elasticity of supply to be elastic or inelastic, okay, and then we're gonna do some revision questions next Thursday, okay. So on that note, okay,